What's going on, guys? Graham GSM Matthews here for Friday, February 22nd, 2019. Hope you guys are doing well. Still trying to get over a cold of sorts from a few days ago, which is why my voice was so shit, and hashtag Ask GSM on Wednesday and Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursday. Still coughing quite a bit. My voice is better. It's not cracking nearly as much, thank God, but I've been coughing quite a bit all day, so if my voice still sounds pretty raspy in this video, I apologize in advance. But I did want to stop in for a quick video discussing all the latest in terms of the WWE releases from the last number of hours. And I'm going to put breaking news in the title of this video, even though it's not really breaking, as the news broke earlier on this afternoon as soon as I got out of watching Fighting with My Family, which was a great film, by the way. Hope to have up a full review of the movie at some point this weekend here on the channel. The documentary on Page, now in theaters, so check that out. But yeah, I went on the Twitter machine as soon as the movie was over, and I saw 3 releases confirmed by the company. And an additional one this morning when I woke up, of WWE producer Arn Anderson, and the other 3 were talents Hideo Itami, Tye Dillinger, and TJP. Now, I'll talk about the more newsworthy ones here in a second. Tye Dillinger had requested his release back on Tuesday night. I saw it Wednesday morning. Just talked about it on Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursday. The clip is actually here up on the channel of Tye Dillinger, of me talking about Tye Dillinger and his release from the company, where WWE went wrong with him, how he could be potentially AEW bound, given his relationship with Cody Rhodes outside the ring. So I won't really delve into the Tye Dillinger news too much here, just because that was pretty obvious. He made it obvious himself on his Twitter back on Tuesday that he wanted out of his contract, and it looks like WWE had no problem granting him it, which is slightly strange just because we heard those rumors, and take them for what exactly they are, just that, rumors, about a month or so ago, that WWE will not be releasing people from their contracts if they are granted, or rather requested, just because they don't want them going to other promotions. AEW. Sorry about that cough there. Which is weird because, again, if that's exactly the case, then why would they willingly let go of Tye Dillinger, Hideo Itami? Now, granted, Itami's not a game changer. Neither would the Revival, but then again, I think the Revival are a bigger get for a company like AEW or Ring of Honor or New Japan than Tye Dillinger would be. But it's weird. It's weird. I'm not doubting the rumors of the Revival wanting out of their contract. I think that was very much legitimate, which is why they're the current Raw Tag Team Champions. Why do you think the Usos won the SmackDown Tag Team titles back at Elimination Chamber last Sunday? Purely my opinion, but where there's smoke, there's fire. So with Dillinger and Itami, they had requested their releases. Dillinger Tuesday, Itami like a month ago after the Royal Rumble. He was in action on the 205 Live show immediately after the Rumble, lost to Akira Tozawa, got attacked by Arya Daivari, and it pretty much, sent the message that he was done with WWE, and he had put up that tweet soon after saying that he was thanking the WWE Universe for a stint in the company dating back to 2014. And then it was reported by Fightful Online that he had indeed requested his release from the company, and it wasn't granted until just today. So, Itami and Dillinger leaving, hardly a surprise. Arn Anderson, I mentioned him earlier, so I woke up to that news from Pro Wrestling Sheet that Arn Anderson, who has been working as a producer for WWE since 2001, when WCW folded, he was brought in an agent role, where he's been ever since. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame back in 2012 as a member of the Four Horsemen, and we've seen him on WWE TV before in various appearances and in various roles and various interviews, like whenever they were talking about like the Triple H and Undertaker feud from years ago. I remember seeing Arn Anderson all over WWE TV talking about that, and Ric Flair related stuff, Four Horsemen related stuff, and he is now gone from the company, and it had been phrased in a way where his departure was not something that he wanted, but rather the WWE was letting him go. Again, for what reasons, we don't know. I'm not even going to begin to speculate, but Arn Anderson's a great get. We talk all about all these memes of the AEW people and how they're going to snatch up the entire WWE roster, like why would people think this guy's going to AEW and so on and so forth, but in all seriousness, Arn Anderson going to AEW would be the perfect fit. They've already hired on Billy Gunn as the producer for their promotion. Well, I still think as of right now is going to be, he's being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'd be shocked if he wasn't at the Hall of Fame ceremony just because he's a part of AEW. I think that's a very petty thing to do, but I'm sure he'll be a part of the actual Hall of Fame ceremony come WrestleMania weekend, despite his current ties with AEW. But Arn Anderson, even Cody went up on Twitter earlier on today. Cody always want to capitalize on all the buzz. He had put up a tweet praising Arn Anderson, his history with Arn Anderson, obviously. His father, Dusty Rhodes, very close with Arn Anderson before he passed back in 2015. So I'm sure Cody's going to stop at nothing to get Arn Anderson on his team for Double or Nothing by May. Obviously not in a wrestling role, let's not be ridiculous, but in a backstage capacity as an agent, producer, whatever you want to call it. So that would not surprise me at all. The only real surprising, Arn Anderson's departure is surprising. TJP's departure is slightly surprising as well, if only because, and I had someone ask me this, I believe it was at Reborn Again, John Ritland, check out his channel, great content. He had asked me on Twitter after I had tweeted about TJP being released earlier on this afternoon, if it was something where he had wanted his release as well, a lot like Itami and Dillinger, which is a pretty, easy thing to think. It's a very logical thing to think just because, Itami wanted his release, he was granted it. Dillinger wanted his release, he was granted it. Who's to say that TJP didn't want his release? Well, who, being TJP himself, who went on Twitter a few days ago. I remember reading the report because someone had asked him on Twitter. It sounded like he was complaining about his current spot in the company, which should surprise no one because the guy has hardly been on TV since the fall. I remember him having a feud with the Lucha House Party. Then I think he lost that, and then he was off TV for months. He resurfaced on Tuesday, lost to Humberto Carrillo, I believe. So that was TJP's final appearance in the company. But he was posting some tweets about that and the fact that he's not happy with where he is right now, but that completely falls on him, and he's going to work harder to get better, blah, blah, blah. Case in point, the guy asked a question, not TJP, but a fan had asked him a question, would you ever consider going to AEW? And he was like, no, just because I want to make the most of my time with the company that I've been wanting to essentially wrestle for my entire career is basically what he said. He was making some baseball analogies like, why would I want to I'm on the bench right now, but why would I want to leave the team that I've been dying to play for my entire life? And I could see what he's talking about. Like, I'm sure Zack Ryder falls in that exact same boat of a guy that has been killing to be a part of WWE his entire career, despite how, he's been buried 6 feet under over the last 5 or 6, 7, 8 years. Ryder is a guy that will never likely ever want to leave WWE because he loves the company too much and he's a WWE mark through and through, and as are these other people like Cody Rhodes, but he was enough to, he was enough of a star to see his worth outside of WWE, take a chance on himself and experience success elsewhere. Not to say that Ryder would be the next Cody Rhodes if he ever left, but, he was one of those people. Ryder's one of those people, seemingly TJP, according to TJP himself, as he said on Twitter back on Tuesday or Wednesday, is one of those people, too, that he was going to make the most of whatever the company gave him, no matter when it was given to him, because like I said, the guy was hardly on TV dating back to the last 6 or 7, 8 months. Even prior to that, the guy was hardly on 205 Live and early on in 2018, even in 2017. He had a few feuds here and there. He turned heel, feuded with Austin Aries, with Neville for a time, with Rich Swann, all of whom are no longer with the company, which is unbelievable to even say that, because so the current Cruiserweight champions are now gone. The King of the Cruiserweights is gone. Another former champion in Rich Swann is gone, and one of the biggest gets in 205 Live history in Austin Aries is also gone. So a lot of those original members of the Cruiserweight division have since been released or quit or fired, whatever, walked out on WWE. You can add TJP to that list as well. The guy's a good talent. I'm not going to sit here and cry about the fact that he's been released just because they haven't done anything with him for the better part of the past 2 years. Like I said, he got that initial huge push right out of the gate as the inaugural WWE Cruiserweight Champion. He won the Cruiserweight Classic, the one and only Cruiserweight Classic, became the Cruiserweight Champion. He was the face of 205 Live for like a cup of coffee. So let's not even begin to imagine or like begin to pretend that the guy was like, oh, this huge star on 205 Live. He really wasn't. To no fault of his own. It was entirely the company's fault. TJP is a very good talent. I was very happy with him winning the Cruiserweight Classic and the fact that he won the whole thing and that he was even signed to a contract in the first place, because I enjoyed his work in WWE. I thought they made a mistake in letting him go. Did I say WWE? I meant Impact. I'm sorry, TNA Impact. They made a mistake in letting him go. He went to WWE, experienced a lot of success right out of the gate, and granted, it wasn't meant for him likely. I doubt he was pegged to win the whole thing from the get-go. It likely would have been Zack Sabre Jr. or more probably Kota Ibushi had he decided to sign with the company over, New Japan or whatever. Had he decided to sign with NXT or 205 Live, WWE, whatever, Kota likely would have won. But because when it came down to it, they asked him, he said no. They went with TJP instead. If it wasn't TJP, it would have been Gran Metalik, who has also done largely of nothing since coming into the company 2-3 years ago. But yeah, TJP, he won the championship. He was positioned as the face of the show for like a month or two. Lost the belt a month after he won it to the Brian Kendrick at Hell in the Cell. I was at that pay-per-view. And then went on to do nothing. He turned heel soon after in 2017. He was a pretty, not well-liked character anyway, so I thought the heel role fit him well. In the video game character, that entrance was cool and all. It was different for everyone else on the roster, but he wasn't being booked all that strongly. His promos on Raw sucked. Whenever he was on Raw, that is, because the Cruiserweights were rarely on Raw at that point, and when they were, it was a bathroom break, even more than the women's matches. But yeah, he wasn't ever really a huge star for 205 Live. He had a few good matches here and there. His alliance with Neville fell through in the middle of 2017. Got one more shot at the Cruiserweight Championship, and that was it. And he competed in the Cruiserweight Championship tournament to crown a new champion about a year ago. Lost that. Like I said, since then he's had feuds with the Lucha House Party. That's really about it. I can't remember too many other matches or feuds that he's had in the last year or so. And again, the guy's a good talent. He never really did much for me personally. I was a TJP fan when he first came in, just because of how he was booked in the Cruiserweight Classic. And, of course, they can make anyone look as good as they want to. And the guy's a great in-ring wrestler. I'm sure he's going to be a great asset to whatever company he wrestles for next. And it's amazing to think that TJP has been in this, industry, has now been wrestling for like close to 2 decades. The he doesn't look that old, but he's like 30-something years old. He's been wrestling since like the late 90s, from what I heard during the Cruiserweight Classic. He's been wrestling for a long time and has wrestled for almost every promotion imaginable. So he'll be a good get for whatever company he wrestles for next, but I just thought the timing was incredibly interesting coming off his comments on Tuesday where he had said, and again, he probably should not have posted about the fact that he was unhappy with his status in WWE, but being like, I love to work here anyway because I'll make the most of whatever I'm given because I want to work here and I've always dreamed of working here, regardless of the fact I'm never on the fucking show. In so many words, that's what he said on Twitter. He probably went a bit too far in saying that because it cost him his job in the end. I would not be surprised if that's why they fired him. And that's probably what made them realize, like, oh shit, this guy's still on our roster. Let's get rid of him. And it sucks. Again, Triple H, I'm sure, was entirely behind the idea of making TJP this force from their get-go when he won the Cruiserweight Classic back in 2016 and making him a real star. And, they botched this guy right from the get-go. Not to say that TJP would have been a breakout star, like the next world champion or anything along those lines. But, they don't even feature him. In the night that the Cruiserweights debuted on Raw, right before Night of Champions 2016, he wasn't even on the fucking show. Didn't even show him in a backstage segment. Instead, they saved it for YouTube, if I remember correctly. They saved his confrontation with the new number one contender, the Brian Kendrick, for YouTube instead. I was like, are you kidding me? What a joke. So, that happened. And then he was booked like a goof. He came across like an imbecile. Then he dropped the championship a month later. So again, people were given no reason to care about this guy. Regardless of how cool his entrance was, people had no reason to care about him from the moment he debuted, like almost literally. And it sucks. I mean, I tweeted out a few weeks ago, and I retweeted the tweet earlier this evening upon finding out that TJP had been released from WWE, so you can check out the tweet in my timeline if you're still listening to this on Friday or Saturday, about how all these guys that Triple H spent so much time building up, making out to be stars, making people want to invest in these people, make them look like stars, make the main roster ready. They show up on the main roster, and despite their determination, their skill set, their talent, they're booked to look like losers, and make these people want to quit the fucking company. That is so sad. And in the tweet, I cited examples such as Neville, who, was among the first ever NXT champions, held that championship for close to a year, headlined the first ever takeover or NXT arrival almost exactly 5 years ago, won the NXT title, was the face of NXT for a few years there from like 2014 to 2015, got called up, booked like a loser, went to 205 Live, had a great run for himself, lost to Enzo Amore, wanted to quit the company. Then you get to the Revival, who have since become the Raw Tag Team Champions, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that they had likely threatened to quit the company and were threatening to walk out because they'd been booked like shit for the last 2 years since they got called up to the company, or called up to the main roster, coming out of WrestleMania 33. Tye Dillinger, same exact thing, same exact weekend in Orlando, did Tye Dillinger get called up to SmackDown Live. I rewatched the Fallout video just the other day. The guy was like crying. He had tears in his eyes. Oh, I'm so happy to be in WWE. Like, finally, after all these years of going through developmental and sticking it through in NXT for like 4 or 5 years, I finally made it to the big time. Less than 2 years after that, the guy asked for his release. He asks for his release and is granted it. I cited Hideo Itami, another guy who was granted his release today. A guy who was touted as one of NXT's first huge signings. Almost won the NXT Championship. He had a first great rookie year for himself in NXT before getting hurt in the spring of 2015. Now he quits the company because he got called up to the main roster. And again, his NXT run wasn't amazing anyway. Injuries had a lot to do with the fact of why he did not achieve the level of success that he should have in NXT. But he's another guy who had a very fun run in NXT by and large. Gets called up to the main roster, quote unquote. Really, it's 205 Live. Has pretty disappointing run there. I think, I don't know if he ever got hurt, per se, but he was there for about a year or so. Did nothing of note whatsoever. Never won the championship. He's another guy that was like, fuck this, I'm going back home to Japan. I'm not happy here. I'm clearly not going to ever succeed in this company. Whether it be on 205 Live or really any brand they have to offer, they're not going to see me for the star that I am. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. And I would not be surprised if more names are announced that they are leaving the company or want to leave the company or requesting their release. I'm sure there's plenty more names behind the scenes that we do not officially know of yet that would like to leave WWE. The Usos, their contracts are up in April. The Revival, their contracts reportedly aren't up until early next year. February 2020, I want to say, maybe April 2020. But that's not for a long time. But still, maybe they get the releases granted before then. Maybe they walk out on the company if they don't like what they're getting as Raw Tag Team Champions. I'm not sure. Like I said earlier, Mike and Maria Kanellis, another pair of people who had reportedly requested their releases from WWE. Maria had gone on the record and said, oh, that's not true. The sources still stand by what they said. The news outlets are still saying, hey, they wanted out. They weren't granted it, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there's more people. Shelton Benjamin, a guy that has been under contract with this company now for close to a year and a half, was brought back with some fanfare, and they've done nothing with the guy. He had the tag team with Chad Gable. He's done nothing. He's another guy that would probably benefit from getting released if they're not going to use him. There's plenty more people. Tyler Breeze. Fucking Tyler Breeze, in the midst of all this news, had tweeted out earlier today, so if anything ever happens to me, who's going to face Mojo Rawley? Is basically what he tweeted. And I laughed my ass off because it's so true. The savagery with this guy. And I don't know exactly how to read Tyler Breeze. He seems like a guy that would want to leave just based off his booking in the last 3 years alone. But he also comes across like a guy to me that is very content with where he is. Because he's also gone on the record in the past, like in years, dating back to when he first got called up. And he went from beating Dolph Ziggler on pay-per-view to losing to Jack Swagger on main event. Someone tweeted him, was like, hey dude, you just doing this for the money at this point? Or like, what's going on? You deserve better. And he's like, well, the paychecks are pretty good, so I don't really mind. That's a pretty bad mindset to get in. I mean, to each their own. I'm sure he's making more in WWE now than he would be in some bingo hall in fucking Minnesota or whatever. But still, I mean, if that's the mindset that the guy has, that, hey, I'm making more money here, and at the end of the day, it's a business. But it's pretty sad that some people are just there for the paycheck and really aren't happy, but they're doing it just to make money. Tyler Breeze was of that mindset. I'm not sure if he's still of that mindset. I don't know the guy, but he could be another one that we see leave or wants to leave or request his release before the end of 2019. It would hardly surprise me. Hardly. So again, stay tuned as more people are likely announced to be leaving WWE or want out of WWE in the next few weeks, months, especially now that AEW is getting off the ground. Granted, they haven't had a single show yet, but after Double or Nothing in May, there's rumored to be a few more shows than one in Jacksonville, I think, in July, maybe Jacksonville, Florida. Another one in Chicago for All In 2, maybe over Labor Day weekend. I'm not exactly sure. But, once AEW starts picking up more steam, more than they already have, do not be surprised to see more people leave for... I mean, it doesn't have to be AEW. Like, I don't see a day with Tommy going to AEW. He could, but I think it's more likely that he goes back to Japan, which is where he kind of cut his teeth first in the first place. Neville, I was surprised first went back to Japan. Now he's coming back to the States to wrestle for AEW. And Tommy, I could see going back to Japan, having some great matches over there in Pro Wrestling Noah, which is where he first became a star many, many years ago. But speaking of AEW, I don't want to make this all about AEW, but It is interesting to note that since all three of these guys, including Arn Anderson, I don't know what the whole 90-day compete clause would hold for him. I would assume that he's just let go and he can appear wherever he wants, starting whenever. But for Itami, Dillinger, and TJP, they have, I would assume, the 90-day non-compete clause. I believe, if it is, accurate, if my math isn't off here, they would be eligible to compete at Double or Nothing in 3 months, which takes place on May, I want to say May 25th, over Memorial Day weekend. As I record this, all this news broke down. The day that all these people were released was February 22nd. So do the math. They're eligible to compete around that time, probably before Double or Nothing on May 25th. So again, there's a pretty good chance we could see some of these guys. Again, TJP even said in the tweet, I have no desire to ever wrestle for AEW. Well, if they wave enough money in your face, who knows what you might say yes to. Itami, I don't see going to AEW. Arn Anderson, I'm almost certain he will. Dillinger, I'm thinking it's almost a lock that he goes to AEW, given his friendship with Cody Rhodes dating back over a decade. I think that just makes the most sense. But, so I did want to note that too. But yeah, stay tuned for more news on these potential walkouts, firings, departures, releases, whatever. It is funny they're letting guys go like TJP, who never asked for their release reportedly, but they're not letting people go who want out of the company, like the Revival or Maria and Mike Kanellis. They're very ass backwards with this type of shit. There's no real rhyme or reason. Mike and Maria are not stars. They're not going to be game changers wherever they go next. Maybe the Revival, definitely not Mike and Maria. So why hold them hostage? But let go of TJP, who was willing to stick around. You know what I mean? It's very strange. But nonetheless, guys, thank you for checking out this extra here on the YouTube channel, whatever you want to call it. It's very rare I do, random YouTube clips like this talking about whatever in the world of WWE. But I thought it was only fitting to do so in the light of all this news, coming off the departure news of TJP, Hideo Itami, Tye Dillinger, and Arn Anderson. Didn't want to wait till Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursday to give my 2 cents on all these departures. So while you're here, guys, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Like I said at the start of the video, I might be back tomorrow or Sunday with a full-on review of Fighting With My Family, the awesome new Page documentary in theaters now. So check that out. It's going to be hopefully up on Saturday or Sunday, like I said. So until then, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Check out new episodes of Wrestle Rant Radio every single Thursday on iTunes and nextwrestling.net. And I'll catch your ass down the road.